Welcome back to Insects for Fun. Today's episode is going to get a little gruesome, but stick with me because this is also one of the most incredible stories of science, pest control, and insect warfare in history. Today, we're talking about the screwworm fly, a parasitic insect whose larvae were once responsible for the mass killing of livestock, wild animals, and even some humans, until scientists figured out how to beat them at their own reproductive game. Screwworms belong to the blowfly family, Callifornidae, but are placed in their own subfamily, Chrysomiinae, genus Cochleomia. Now, there are actually two species commonly referred to as screwworms: the New World screwworm, Cochleomia hominivorax, and the secondary screwworm, Cochleomia mesellaria. Of the two, the New World screwworm is the true menace because it feeds on living tissue, unlike its cousin, the secondary screwworm, which typically colonizes dead or decaying flesh. Now, the name screwworm comes from the larvae's screw-like shape and the way they burrow into flesh in a twisting motion. A single female fly can lay up to 400 eggs at a time, usually around a wound or natural body opening. After hatching, the larvae immediately begin feeding on healthy living tissue. This isn't your average maggot cleanup crew. These little guys cause massive, painful wounds that often become infected and can be fatal if untreated. The female fly is especially dangerous because she's drawn to even the smallest of wounds. Now we're talking like tick bite, scratch, or even a newborn's umbilical stump. And unlike many parasitic flies, she only mates once in her life, which, as we'll see, turned out to be her Achilles heel. So let's break down how these gruesome parasites work. Eggs are laid in or around wounds, as mentioned, and hatch in about 12 to 24 hours. The larvae, or maggots, immediately begin to burrow and feed. They then stay in the host for 3 to 7 days, causing extensive damage. In one documented case from Texas in the 1930s, an entire herd of cattle was affected, with many animals showing deep necrotic wounds filled with writhing larvae. A 1958 USDA report also recorded human cases, including a Florida boy who nearly lost his ear after a screwworm infestation went unnoticed for several days. That's several days, and the kid almost lost an ear. Now, infestations are known to cause severe tissue destruction, leading to exposed bones, secondary bacterial infections, and even death in young or weakened hosts. Now, at this point, I'm sure you guys want to know how big these worms actually get. The larvae can grow up to 17 millimeters long, which is about 2/3 of an inch. They also have bands of short spines encircling each body segment, and they're kind of shaped like a screw, with the front end being pointed with their small head, and the abdomen being the widest part and having a flat back. Once these larvae are ready to pupate, they leave their host, drop to the ground, and bury themselves in the soil where they pupate for 7 to 10. Adult flies emerge and live for several weeks, feeding on nectar and fluids. But remember, only the larvae are parasitic. The flies are native to the Americas and historically ranged from the southern US all the way through Central and South America. Following successful eradication campaigns using the sterile insect technique, they were eliminated from the US by the 1980s and much of northern Mexico shortly thereafter. However, New World screwworms are still present in parts of Central and South America, particularly in Panama, Colombia, Brazil, and surrounding regions. A barrier zone in Panama maintained by the USDA and international collaborators continues to release sterile males to prevent northward migration. Occasional outbreaks still occur in previously eradicated areas, though, and this is due to the movement of infested animals, as seen in 2016 when screwworms were detected in the Florida Keys for the first time in decades, and this required a swift eradication measure to contain the spread. Now, unfortunately, as many of you have probably read or seen in the news, the New World screwworm, which again is the one you don't want, experienced a pretty major outbreak in 2023 within Panama, and it's still spreading northward. The reason? Well, apparently it's a result of illegal cattle trafficking, which led infected cattle out of the buffer zone of sterile males. The big reason screwworms are so hard to combat is due to the lag time between infection and detection. This is especially true for cattle farms, where cows are often dispersed over a large area and aren't seen for days at a time. In 2024, an infected cow was found in Mexico near the southern border, and as a result, the US halted livestock import. Apparently, as of now, there is only one facility in Panama that breeds sterilized New World screwworms. Obviously, that isn't enough, and hundreds of millions more sterile flies are needed to slow this current outbreak, which is why the US decided it would be a good idea to open a fly factory at the border between Texas and Mexico. But what exactly is this sterile male technique that we're building this new facility for? And how did it start? In the 1950s, American scientists Edward Knipling and Raymond Bushlin pioneered a method called the sterile insect technique, SIT. Since the female fly only mates once, releasing millions of sterile males into the wild meant that females were wasting their one shot at reproduction. The program actually started in Florida and other parts of southeastern US, and as mentioned earlier, by the 1980s, the screwworm had been eradicated from the United States and much of Mexico. This eradication campaign is one of the most successful examples of biological pest control in history, and it's still studied in entomology and agricultural courses around the world. I mean, I even learned about it while in my graduate program, and it's been used for other insects too, like mosquitoes. Spoiler, the next Patreon bonus episode is all about mosquitoes and rain barrels. Alright, let's now talk about predators and defenses, because truth be told, people in South America have been living with these flies for, well, forever. It's part of their daily life and a part of their cattle business, and always has been. How do they deal with it? Simple. They just check their livestock more frequently. Because screwworms are internal parasites and animals can't openly tell us if they have an infection, it's up to us to check them. They also don't have many natural predators while inside a host. However, birds, ants, and beetles will readily eat the pupae once they've dropped to the ground. And some animals, like grooming cattle or deer, can remove them from wounds, excluding our help. Okay, let's get into some short cultural and historical tidbits. In the early 1900s, screwworms were so feared that ranchers would reluctantly euthanize animals rather than watch them suffer through infestations. Which doesn't sound too bad when using the word suffer, but most if not all infestations can be cleaned and treated. During World War II, screwworm infestations of soldiers' wounds in tropical areas added urgency to finding a solution, and propelled the creation of the sterile insect technique. In modern pop culture, screwworms have appeared in horror fiction and documentaries, often labeled as one of the most disturbing parasites in the animal kingdom. But honestly, I think there are plenty of others that can take the cake. And with that, let's wrap up this week's episode on screwworms. Thanks for sticking through the squirmy stuff here on Insects for Fun. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow and share the podcast. Got a creepy crawly you want featured? Send it to my email, insectsfordummies@gmail.com, or go ahead and DM me on the Instagram. And until next time, watch out for those flies. Thanks again for listening.